Good morning, everyone. I hope it's turning out to be a good day so far. Sorry for the delay. So I was on the road, and I was driving, and I saw outside the window, and there were these people on the road as well, all dressed up as if they were all ready to get to office. And they were wearing clothes, and these clothes they had bought because they had to look good in office. They were driving cars because they had to get to office, and they were going to office so that they could earn money and pay installments for this car that they were driving. And yes, they left behind a house which was absolutely empty, and they had to go to work also because they had to make rent. Now, that can be the story of almost everybody's life. The question is, what does that have to do with the road less taken? There's a big myth, a myth which rather says that the road less taken means you have to leave everything that you do right now and do something that requires you to just become a saint or something like that. I mean, it's definitely not about wearing khaki. It's definitely not about leaving everything which is worldly. So what is this road less taken? That's pretty much what I'm going to talk to you about today. But I would like to share with you a little story first. And this is the story of a simple, normal, middle-aged man from a small suburban town in India. He owned a little electronics store, and he was doing pretty well for himself, but then he got married. No, that wasn't the climax of the story. See, what happened really was he got married and he had a kid, and even that wasn't the climax of the story. But as things progressed, as his life went by, he realized that the money that he was making wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to support his family, wasn't enough to support his needs, so he had to do something. He wound up his shop, sold everything out, and finally went out there to look for a job. He found one. He became a medical sales representative, and he did that for a good 5 years. He got to a pretty good designation, started earning good money, bought a car, bought a house. Now that's pretty much what everybody's career looks like after a point in time, and we're all looking forward to more and more and more. That's just the usual rut. Then something happened. He had a heart attack. That's just the usual rut. Then something happened. He had a heart attack. Stories changed, things changed, whatever was going on in his life changed. And all of a sudden, from his fast car, he was in an absolutely dead, slow bed. So there were these pills, and there were these medical bills, and that's pretty much what governed his entire routine. Amidst all of that, he knew somewhere that something had gone wrong. He had to make some changes, he had to make some amends. But how could he do that? He had also lost hope for surviving, so he was actually at peace with it. But then modern medicine gave him hope, and he survived. He got his second chance. And the second chance came out to be a little bit of a problem, because now he had a big question to answer. How do I support my family now that I'm going to live? Well, he went back to try to look for a job, and now nobody was willing to give him a job because everybody thought that this man is going to die on them. So from the regional head of sales for the region, came all the way back to the medical sales representative that he was 6 years ago. He was earning 10 times less than what he used to, but I guess that's just how life becomes at times. So the story moved on, and he was trying to get in pace with the work that he was doing, and that's when the second attack hit him. Back to the bed, back to the bills, back to the pills, everything was becoming as slow as it became once. And things were not really looking good at all. But he knew that he had to sustain his family. I don't know, maybe that is what was driving him throughout. He got back up. The doctor suggested you got to be on the bed rest for 3 months. He was back up in 3 days because he knew bed rest wasn't something that he could afford. So he went back, he tried a couple of businesses, failed in a couple of them, and 7 years went by. Meanwhile, he had 10 other minor heart attacks. Okay? And yes, I do have reports that do suggest this data. It is not medically impossible, but he had 10 other minor heart attacks. And then finally, one fine day, he was in a client meeting with with a new business that he was running, which was into construction, which was finally doing well, And that's where he had his 13th and final heart attack, and well, nobody really could save him. This man was my father. And one thing that I knew when I was a kid, when I saw all of this happening, and all of this happened by the time I was in 7th grade. One thing that I knew was being different was a good thing. Being different is what gets you your points, no matter what kind of points. It could be the brownie points that you get at work, or it could be the other points that you get in college. Whatever points, being different gets them to you. And that's what I like to believe since I was a kid. First time I debated because, well, I didn't want to sit in the audience. It's a pathetic reason, but that's all I had. And then as life went by, I was doing things in the office, a lot of which I did just because I wanted to be different. And then I decided I have to write something, because my life was getting a little too same as the others. So I had to write something. So I wrote up a blog, I wrote a couple of books, and I realized that I was doing that as well, just for the sake of doing it. Now that hit me with a very big question. The question was I really walking on this road less taken? And somehow I ended up realizing that I was on a track as beaten as any other, because end of the day, all of what I was trying to do was to survive. It can't get disappointing than that if you think you're doing something great and the next moment it's not as great as you think, and that can just take the shine off it. So I thought of kind of monetizing it, arranging the data and understanding how true my findings were. So I went ahead and did something. What you see here is my workstation in the office. Okay, that's the place I spend maximum time, more than what I spent at home. So I thought that will be more apt to show you. That's where I made a list on the notepad that you see there, and I listed down every accomplishment that I had since I was a kid. Okay, I was very happy because it ended up into 8 pages. Okay, there were good accomplishments and not so good accomplishments socially. All right, but I listed all of them down anyway. And once I did list them down, I had to find a way to understand them. Now, trying to understand a list 8 pages long can be a tough job. So what do? Well, I kind of figured out that all the tasks, all the things that I had done can be basically classified into 2 things. Either they were right or wrong, or they were easy and difficult. So this is what we got by the end of it. I had the wrong and the right, and the easy and the hard. And then I had 4 types of tasks which primarily classified all the work that I did throughout my life so far. So the 4 kind of tasks I had was the easy and wrong, like overeating. It can be a little tough at times. And then there were these things which were easy and right, like smiling, being nice to people. And then there was this other category which was hard and wrong. Honestly, I couldn't figure too many examples there, but no, that is a typo. Okay, definitely not something that I planned for. There were these things which were hard but wrong. They were easy but wrong. They were easy and right. And there was this one other thing, which wasn't easy, but somehow it felt really, really right. Okay, and I could only trace back one example that was something that I went through when I was in 7th standard, and I happened to get the highest marks in maths. Now my teachers knew that wasn't possible, so they were really wondering why. But well, what I finally had to end up doing was I went up there and I told my teacher, hey, I cheated. I was probably nuts when I was saying that, but it felt really, really good. It was 7th standard. So, not too much at stake. But it felt really, really good. So a lot of times, the road less taken is simply the one that we need to accept. It's very interesting to know that each one of us sitting here, I can guarantee you, with a couple of thousand rupees right now, that you cannot say that your life is the same as anybody else's inside this entire room full of 100 people right now. So the deck of cards that you have been dealt with is really different. And that changes the game plan. That changes the game plan almost every time that you step up to the pedestal and play. So the question that comes in is, how do we get onto this road less taken? And I was so confused once I figured out all of this, that all I had done on the road less taken so far was just one thing. Pretty weird and insanely disappointing. One of these days I was playing with this other thing which I thought was a road less taken, and I have a lot of people who've kind of done the same thing here, which was to buy a DSLR camera. Okay, so I bought mine and I was trying to play around with it outside, and I was thinking I'm a photographer, and I was looking for some subjects to shoot. That's the technical term for it. So you know, right outside the house, there was this construction work going on, and I went up there and I found this little family playing together. Dad was there, and 2 kids were there, and they're all playing, they're looking awesome. And I started shooting them, you know, I started clicking a couple of pictures. The dad went by, he went back to his work, and this little girl walks up to me and says, I want to see the pictures. I said, sure, why not? So I did kind of strike up a conversation with her about it. And while I was showing her the picture, so I really want to tell you what this little girl taught me about the road less taken. Okay, so this little girl, which you see in the picture there, okay, that's one of the pictures that I clicked that day. She's the girl who came up to me and she asked me, show me the pictures. I did show her, and while the conversation was going on, I asked her, what do you want to become when you grow up? And she said that my dad builds these really big houses, but we have to live in a small one. I want to live in the big houses, you know, that's pretty much all I want to do when I grow up. So I asked her, what do you do now? What all do you do now? And she said, I do a lot of things. I play with my brother, I have fun, I go out. I also go out dancing on the streets with my mother, because that is how we have to make money sometimes when dad doesn't make enough. It was interesting, okay, to say the least. Not much I could have done for her at that moment. I did try to talk to her parents about putting her into school, but it's not really very easy for them either. But luck of the draw, I was holding a very similar conversation with another guy a couple of days later. Okay, he's a very good friend of mine, and I asked him the same question: what do you want to do when you get forward with your life? And he said, I want to sing and dance. So now I had a very interesting situation. I had a girl who wanted to live in a big house and was singing and dancing currently, and I had a guy who was living in a big house and wanted to sing and dance in the future. That kind of does put our goals into perspective, doesn't it? Sometimes some people have things that we just dream of, and they have them because they want it. It's not really about taking it for the sake of taking it. It's honestly about wanting it, and if you really want it, you get it, you know, and that's just how the road less taken works. So a lot of this research and that childhood learning, I would say, of being different, forced me to ask this question: how do you take the road less taken, and how do you do that every day? So that kind of led me to these 4 little steps, you know. So whenever I get stuck in a situation and I have to try to find out what's the best way to get out of it, what's a road less taken, or what's something that I would really enjoy doing, I ask myself these 4 things, and this is what I call the process of walking on the road less taken. So the first step is asking yourself, what's the worst that could happen? So I mean, just imagine, you know, a simple example of the way I look at it, the road less taken, is to stop at the stop line when the traffic light goes red. Something that people just can't do for some reason, you know. And if you do it, they'll honk at you. The question is, would you move your car ahead because you're honking? Or would you ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? I mean, I don't think anybody's going to get out of the car and, you know, give you a piece of their mind. They're going to keep honking for a while. Well, let them. It's consuming their battery, not yours. Okay? And the next thing to understand here is probably to be able to live in the moment. How many times does it happen? I mean, even sitting here right now, how many of you can honestly, comfortably promise that you're thinking about exactly what I'm saying right now, and not the examples from your life that you have experienced before, and not your dreams that you would like to fulfill in the future based on whatever we're talking about here? It's just way too often that we're looking at either what happened or what should happen in the future, and that is what complicates the hell out of life. We just don't live in the moment, and I think that's exactly the second step, to be able to enjoy what you do and to live in the moment. The third thing that comes up, and if you ever want to live in the moment, you definitely have to take the third step, which is learn to learn. You know, people spend so much time not learning, picking up what to learn. It's really an interesting science in itself almost now. Okay? As a matter of fact, there was a survey published in 1998 that said that on an average, an Indian student takes about 3.5 months. I'm sure you can do your maths and convert it into hours. 3.5 months to select which subjects he wants to take or what courses he'd like to take. From 1980 till now, we've had 12,700, and in fact more than that, different course options added to the syllabuses around the world. Now that's what talks about choice. The question is, are we doing it for the degree or are we doing it to learn? So the third thing that helps us take the road less traveled is learning to learn. And the final thing is, keep happiness handy. I mean, there are these small things that make you happy. It could be playing with your kids, could be playing with, playing with is not the right word. Teasing your brothers and sisters, could be anything that you like. Could be hanging out with friends, but keep it handy. Because if you're trying to walk this road, it's not going to be easy, and when it's not easy, you definitely need that moral support. And that is the process of walking this road less taken. So the question that comes up, everybody keeps saying, walk the road less taken, walk the road less taken, walk the road less taken. Where are you walking with it? Okay. Where are you trying to get it to? I will answer that question in just a moment. But before that, there's another story that just came to mind, and I definitely think you should know about it. And it's the story of a consultant. You know consultants, I'm a consultant. Okay. It's the story of a consultant who was on a vacation at a beach in Mahabalipuram somewhere. And he finds this fisherman who had gone into the sea to catch some fish, and he comes out. And he's got this really big net with really little fish. So he's very disappointed. But he's on vacation, but still he's disappointed. He's a consultant after all. So he goes up to the fisherman and asks him, he said, why do you have so little fish? So this guy turns around and says, well, I don't know. That's enough for me. He says, no. You see, you need to change that practice. See, I saw you going. You went like 2 hours ago right before sunset. That's not the best time for fishing. You got to go early in the morning. He says, okay, great. Then what? So see, if you go early in the morning, you'll have more time to fish and you'll have more fish by the end of the day. Now, I'm a Bengali, I have to talk about fish, so bear with me, please. That's what the consultant said. And then this guy says, then what? If I go early in the morning, then what? He says, then you'll be able to buy a lot of boats and do a lot more fishing and make a lot more money. He says, great. Then what? He says, then you can open up a couple of companies, get listed on the stock exchange, become a multi-billionaire, live in a big city, have the life that everybody dreams of. This is fantastic. Then what? He says, then I don't know. Once you get a little older, maybe you can retire and settle down in a small town, do whatever you like doing once in a while just to keep things going and chill out and relax for the rest of the time. He says, great. What else do you think am I doing right now? That's exactly what the fisherman asked. So the only thing I'd like to conclude this talk today with, and I hope you've taken up something very simple, something very small, which was a way of walking this road less traveled. Remember, there are 4 steps to it. What is the worst that could happen is a question that you ask yourself. All in the moment is something that you have to remind yourself of to stay in. Learn to learn is the key to everything that you want to do on this road less taken. And finally, keep things that make you happy close to you. Now, before I close, the question that comes up here is, why is it so important to get to a destination eventually? I can't answer that question for you. Maybe you'll have to do that. But one thing that teaches me a lot. So yesterday I saw this bottle of Johnny Walker. Okay, and that really made me think, why exactly is it Johnny Walker and not Johnny Destination? So it definitely has something to do with the journey that one has. And I'm sure everybody's had vacations before. And my favorite vacation, and just close it at that, was the one where I remembered everything that happened on the way to the place that we were going to, and not really at what happened there. So on that note, thank you very much. Do keep that in mind and have a road less taken ahead.